Imagine this. You're holding a bottle, but inside isn't just a drink. It's a centuries-old secret fueling a multi-billion-dollar empire. How can this be? In the annals of business history, there are mysteries guarded not just for centuries, but like the most precious treasures, accessible only to a select few. And the most astonishing part? Their true power lies not in gold nor in ingredients, but in masterful myth-making, in the subtle art of weaving invisible threads that connect a brand to the minds of millions. For over 100 years, Coca-Cola deliberately fostered an air of inaccessibility around its recipe, transforming a common list of ingredients into an untouchable trade secret worthy of legends and speculation. Consider this. What's more valuable, the actual formula or the idea of its incredible worth? Clearly, for the millions who purchase this beverage daily, it's precisely the notion of its uniqueness and exclusivity that is paramount. This concept doesn't just generate demand, it forges a deep emotional bond, making the product a part of personal histories and cultural heritage. The story of this drink isn't about chemistry and physics. It's pure psychology and masterful marketing. The secret became its most valuable intangible asset, continuously piquing the interest of millions of consumers, like a mysterious whisper that compels everyone to lean in, trying to catch fragments of ancient knowledge. The company seemed to whisper, "We have something you won't find anywhere else," and this whisper echoed globally, creating an aura of exclusivity that proved impossible to replicate. Yet, what was the formula originally? It was simply a recipe. An ordinary recipe from pharmacist John Pemberton, concocted in the distant year 1886. Without any strategic intention for global secrecy, believe me. Just a headache remedy born in a humble pharmacy, not a clandestine lab designed for world domination. Dr. Pemberton, in all likelihood, could never have imagined his modest invention would become the subject of so many legends. But how did it transform into a sacred holy grail? The pivotal moment came with Asa Candler, who acquired the company in 1889, marking the beginning of a deliberate transformation. The recipe, from a simple set of instructions, evolved into a truly sacred artifact. It was Candler, possessing incredible entrepreneurial acumen, who swiftly realized exclusivity was the key. He chose to restrict access to the formula, laying the first bricks of a future myth, like an architect erecting the foundation for a grand yet invisible cathedral. He understood that perceived uniqueness was more important than chemical analysis. The first mentions of the recipe's strict safeguarding appeared in the early 20th century. The company began to insist that only a select few initiates knew the full composition, imbuing it with the status of esoteric knowledge, accessible only to members of a secret order. This order, of course, consisted of company executives, but to the public, it sounded far more intriguing, as if speaking of ancient wisdom keepers. This policy was, naturally, bolstered by legal measures. Why? To prevent leaks and replication. The company's lawyers worked tirelessly to protect this secret, erecting a legal barrier around the aura of mystery. Here's the secret, though. The true complexity of the recipe was vastly exaggerated. The reality proved far more prosaic than the legend being crafted. Many experts asserted that the basic components were known, but that wasn't the point. The essence lay in belief. And over the years, the legend of the Formula 7X, hidden in an inaccessible vault, attained truly epic proportions. It became an integral part of the brand's identity, a kind of commercial holy grail shimmering in the darkness of bank vaults. This myth was so potent that even attempts at replication seemed like paltry imitations, utterly devoid of soul. The culmination of this strategy arrived in 1925. A shock. The company sealed the only known copy of the formula in a bank vault at the Trust Company Bank in Atlanta. This was a landmark event, symbolizing an era of absolute secrecy. The public learned of it, and this only intensified the sense of mystery. Every movement of the formula, a transfer to a new vault, a temporary extraction, was staged with such pomp and circumstance that it resembled a state ceremony. Imagine armed guards, armored vehicles, meticulously planned routes, as if they were transporting not mere paper, but nuclear weaponry. This demonstrated to the world, what we have here is not just a piece of paper with ingredients, but an inviolable treasure guarded by dragons. Secrecy didn't merely protect the recipe from competitors. It created a powerful sense of the product's uniqueness, compelling consumers to believe in its unparalleled superiority, like a magical elixir accessible only to the chosen few. Marketing campaigns often hinted at this mystery, but never, hear this, never revealed it, maintaining the intrigue and fueling public curiosity like a skilled storyteller who never quite finishes, leaving listeners yearning for more. This approach transformed an ordinary soda into something far greater, a mystery everyone wanted to solve, but no one could. This approach allowed Coca-Cola to avoid ingredient wars. The focus shifted from chemical composition to emotional connection and the mystical allure of the brand. Competitors, attempting to reproduce the taste, expended immense resources on analysis and development. They analyzed every molecule, trying to decipher the chemical makeup, but always failed to reproduce that very magic. But could they replicate the magic? Never, because the magic resided in the myth itself, not in the syrup. They chased a phantom, failing to grasp its true nature. They tried to copy the body, but they couldn't capture the soul. And remember the story of New Coke in 1985? What a story. It became the clearest confirmation of this secret's power. The attempt to change the formula sparked such an uproar, such consumer outrage, that the company was forced to bring back the classic version. People protested, called hotlines, wrote letters, staged demonstrations, demanding the return of their Coke, proving that for consumers, the recipe wasn't just a taste, but a deeply ingrained part of their cultural code. This episode showed people valued not the composition itself, but the idea of constancy and uniqueness that the company had cultivated for decades. Incredible, yet true. It was a genuine lesson for marketers worldwide. Sometimes the most valuable asset isn't the product, but the story it tells. This is how the formula became not a tangible asset, but an invisible foundation upon which a colossal brand was built. Its value is measured in hundreds of billions of dollars. It was the myth of the formula that allowed Coca-Cola to transcend being merely a product and become a cultural phenomenon, a symbol of the American dream, of globalization, even of nostalgia. It spreads across the world like an unstoppable wave, washing over the shores of every continent. The evolution of this secrecy strategy, from a minor detail to the brand's cornerstone, demonstrates unprecedented mastery in perception management and the creation of long-term value. In an era when information has become universally accessible, Coca-Cola continues to guard its main secret, affirming that in the business world, some legends are far more powerful than any reality, like ancient myths that have withstood the test of time and continue to influence us. And this myth continues to work, making every bottle not just a drink, but a part of a global legend. A stroke of genius in mechanics. How the Coca-Cola Company earns billions without owning factories. Picture this. One of the world's largest corporations, with products in virtually every corner of the planet, owns a negligible number of bottling plants for its beverages. How can this be? Transitioning from the mystical aura of the formula to the pragmatic structure of the corporation, we discover something truly astonishing. Coca-Cola's financial might rests on an ingenious division of labor. This occurs between two virtually independent yet interconnected entities, like two perfectly meshed gears in a complex, perpetually running mechanism. It's not just a division, but a strategic allocation of roles that ensured the company unparalleled growth and control over the global market. The Coca-Cola Company is, in essence, the brand manager, the architect of the empire. It's the concentrate producer, the strategic hub that handles intellectual property, marketing, and the supply of that very secret syrup. It's the brain that develops ideas, creates images, and shapes global strategy. But the real money, more precisely, its direct generation in local markets, comes from an extensive network of independent bottlers. Do you see the distinction? They purchase the concentrate, bottle it, distribute it, and sell the final product. They are the company's living circulatory system, countless arteries feeding every cell of this global organism. Without their work, the concentrate would remain merely a sweet liquid, never reaching the consumer. This dual model, established in the late 19th century, became one of the most effective business solutions in corporate history. It allowed for scaling with minimal capital investment from the parent company, much like a skilled general expanding an empire by delegating authority to troops on the front lines. This foresight was so profound that it continues to inspire admiration. When Asa Candler sold the rights to bottle the beverage in 1899 for $1 symbolic. To Benjamin Thomas and Joseph Whitehead, he initiated a breakthrough. This breakthrough defined future global expansion, turning a penny deal into a gold mine. At first glance, it seems insane to sell rights to such a promising idea for such a small sum. But Candler saw much further. This contract, which initially seemed odd, allowed the Coca-Cola Company to avoid enormous costs for building plants, logistics, and distribution across the country, and later worldwide. It was as if shifting a heavy burden onto the shoulders of thousands of eager, success-hungry volunteers. Instead, these costs and risks fell upon the numerous bottlers who invested their own capital in equipment, personnel, and transport, essentially becoming franchisees, the local captains of the Coca-Cola ship. This allowed the company to concentrate on its core without being distracted by operational complexities. Thus, the Coca-Cola Company focused on what it does best, creating a unique product, the syrup, and unprecedented marketing that shapes consumer demand. Like a conductor guiding a vast orchestra, playing the same recognizable tune worldwide. They compose the melody and the bottlers perform it, ensuring harmony across all markets. The relationship between the company and its bottlers is regulated by complex long-term contracts. These guarantee exclusive territories, but also establish strict quality standards and pricing policies for the concentrate, ensuring order in a vast empire. This isn't merely a partnership, it's a meticulously constructed system of control and incentives that runs like clockwork. Bottlers, operating hundreds of plants globally, represent the capital-intensive link in this chain, responsible for producing billions of bottles and cans, as well as complex logistics to every point of sale, performing a titanic task that we rarely even consider. They are the massive army that delivers the product to every village, every city, making it accessible to everyone. But here's a key point that will astonish you. The syrup business, managed by the parent company, is the most high-margin business in the world. Why? Because it requires minimal fixed asset investments and boasts high added value, transforming the concentrate into something akin to liquid gold poured into barrels. The cost of producing the concentrate is relatively low, while its selling price to bottlers, which includes brand value and marketing support, is significantly higher. This generates colossal profits that flow directly into the parent company's coffers like a mighty river. Every milliliter of syrup brings profit to the company, unburdened by the costs of producing the final product. Historically, this model provided the company with a stable cash flow, allowing it to invest in global expansion, innovation, and of course, continuous marketing campaigns that perpetuate the myth. This enabled it not only to survive, but to thrive in an ever-changing market. This structure created a synergistic effect. Bottlers gained access to a world-renowned brand and powerful advertising support, while the Coca-Cola Company acquired a global distribution network without the need for direct asset ownership, an ideal symbiosis where everyone wins. For decades, this model constantly adapted, including through the acquisition and subsequent divestment of some bottlers by the company itself. Why? To optimize operations and improve control over the supply chain, demonstrating flexibility and strategic thinking. It was akin to fine-tuning a complex mechanism where every element must perform flawlessly. The financial brilliance of this two-tiered system lies in minimizing operational risks for the parent company by transferring them to local partners, while simultaneously maximizing profits from intellectual property. A brilliant move, worthy of a chess grandmaster calculating the game 10 steps ahead. Thus, the Coca-Cola Company sells not only a beverage, but the idea itself, a brand, a story, packaged into a concentrate that is then transformed into billions of beverages across the globe. This unique financial mechanism has been one of the main drivers of the company's unprecedented growth and dominance in the global beverage market, ensuring stability and profitability for many decades, creating an empire built on syrup and dreams rather than bricks and mortar. It's an empire that knows no bounds and requires no massive tangible assets for its existence. The Colossus's influence. How the Coca-Cola Company reshapes the planet's map. Hold your breath. Imagine a company that, to produce its iconic beverage, consumes so much water and sugar that it literally alters the landscape of entire countries and impacts the lives of millions of people. This is not a metaphor. Coca-Cola's historical journey to its status as one of the planet's largest corporations is inextricably linked to its unwavering influence on the global markets for key resources, water and sugar. This impact is felt on every continent, from small villages to vast megacities. Water. Seemingly the most accessible resource, yet, in reality, it's a critical and increasingly scarce element. Coca-Cola, consuming colossal volumes, has become a significant player in the global struggle for water resources, like a giant thirsting for nectar in the desert. Thousands of liters daily are used just for the production of this single beverage, not to mention the company's other products. Throughout its history, the company has had to construct complex logistical and production chains to ensure the uninterrupted supply of clean water to its thousands of plants worldwide, like an army supplying its outposts in the most remote corners. This required building water intakes and purification facilities, which in itself is a massive infrastructural undertaking. In some regions, particularly in developing countries, the large-scale consumption of water by Coca-Cola's operations has led to public debates, accusations of depleting local aquifers, and environmental protests, transforming water from a gift of nature into a bone of contention from which nothing grows but conflict. Consider examples from India, Latin America, Africa. In villages where wells once flowed, people faced drying sources and had to walk kilometers for drinking water, while a nearby plant continued its operations. Water resources that were accessible to local populations became objects of corporate interest, causing social tension comparable to a struggle for survival. What is the cost of this thirst? The price can be very high: social unrest, conflicts, and a deterioration in the quality of life for local populations. The company, in turn, has always insisted on its commitment to sustainable water management, investing in purification technologies, water replenishment, and conservation programs. This became a response to growing public pressure, an attempt to atone and build bridges. They launched programs to restore aquifers and build community wells. But critics argue that these measures are insufficient to offset the entire volume of consumption. However, its status as one of the world's largest water consumers makes its actions in this area subject to intense scrutiny and constant criticism from environmental organizations, as if it is constantly under the microscope of public oversight, with every step meticulously analyzed. This persistent pressure demands that the company be more transparent and accountable. An analogous, if not deeper, influence is exerted by Coca-Cola on global sugar markets as one of its largest industrial purchasers. Since its invention, the beverage has required significant volumes of sweetener, and the company has actively participated in shaping global supply chains for cane and beet sugar, transforming it from a simple agricultural crop into a strategic commodity upon which economies are built. Imagine vast plantations covering thousands of hectares, cultivated specifically to meet the demand of giants like Coca-Cola. Its financial influence allowed it to dictate terms to suppliers, stimulating the development of the sugar industry in various countries, but also creating monopolistic tendencies, like an invisible hand guiding a vast sweet market. Many sugar producers became entirely dependent on orders from large corporations. In sugar-producing countries such as Brazil, Mexico, India, and the Philippines, Coca-Cola's presence and procurement have had, and continue to have, a colossal impact on agricultural landscapes and economies, reshaping them in its own image, leaving behind monoculture fields. This means that vast territories of land are used solely for growing sugar, leading to a loss of biodiversity and soil depletion. The dependence of entire regions on sugar production for giants like Coca-Cola often led to agricultural specialization, a reduction in biodiversity, and social consequences for farmers, trapping them in a sweet yet monotonous monoculture. Farmers who once cultivated diverse crops for local consumption are forced to switch to sugarcane to survive, becoming part of a global chain controlled from outside. Historically, the company actively lobbied government policies related to sugar subsidies, import tariffs, and trade agreements. Why? To ensure stable and favorable raw material prices, weaving a web of influence that enveloped entire governments. This influence extends from the fields to ministerial offices. Coca-Cola's influence on sugar markets manifested not only in direct procurement, but also in shaping consumer preferences, maintaining high demand for sweet beverages, which in turn stimulated sugar production, creating a self-perpetuating cycle. And what does this imply for our health? In recent decades, with growing public health concerns and the obesity epidemic, the company has faced pressure. It is urged to reduce the sugar content in its products and diversify its portfolio. Yet, its historical role in shaping the global sugar market is undeniable, like a mark left on the earth that cannot be erased. Control over these vital resources, water and sugar, has become not merely an operational necessity, but a strategic asset, allowing Coca-Cola to maintain its global dominance and financial power, like two pillars upon which its empire rests. Thus, the history of Coca-Cola is also a story of how one corporation learned to manage natural resources and agricultural chains, transforming them into multi-billion-dollar profits and exerting significant influence on the socio-economic structure of entire nations, changing the face of the planet one sip of sweet water at a time. It's not just a drink, it's a force capable of changing the world, the gold standard of Wall Street. Why Warren Buffett loves Coca-Cola so much. How did one of the greatest investors of all time turn $1 billion into tens of billions simply by holding shares in a single company? Transitioning from the resource base to financial peaks, the shares of the Coca-Cola Company, trading under the ticker KO on Wall Street, represent one of the most striking examples of stability, resilience, and long-term capital creation in stock market history. These are not merely securities, they are a symbol of reliability and predictability in a world full of financial upheavals. The history of KO shares is a chronicle of unwavering growth and dividend payouts that have, for decades, attracted investors seeking not so much rapid ascent, but a safe harbor for their capital, like a lighthouse guiding the way through a stormy sea. From the earliest stages of its public listing, Coca-Cola shares established themselves as a blue-chip stock capable of weathering economic storms. From Great Depressions to world wars and financial crises, like an unshakable rock against which waves of turmoil crash, its shares have survived numerous economic cycles, continuing to generate income for their owners. A key factor in KO's appeal to investors is its global scale and brand strength. These ensure stable product demand regardless of economic cycles, like an eternal spring in the financial world where there's always a harvest. Whether the global economy is thriving or struggling, people continue to drink Coca-Cola, providing the company with a stable revenue stream. The phenomenon of Coca-Cola as an investment cannot be discussed without mentioning Warren Buffett, the legendary Oracle of Omaha. His multi-decade ownership of KO shares has become a classic example of successful investing, a gold standard of patience and foresight, admired by generations of investors. Buffett has repeatedly stated that Coca-Cola is a company he understands and believes in. Buffett began actively acquiring Coca-Cola shares in the late 1980s, investing approximately $1.3 billion. Since then, this position remains one of the largest and most profitable in his Berkshire Hathaway portfolio, bearing fruit for decades. He bought shares when many doubted, and he proved them wrong. His philosophy of buying great companies at fair prices perfectly aligned with Coca-Cola's fundamental characteristics: a strong brand, predictable cash flows, and global presence, everything he valued most. Buffett always sought businesses with simple, understandable products and a strong competitive advantage. For Buffett, Coca-Cola represented the epitome of an economic moat, a sustainable competitive advantage that allows a company to protect its market share and profitability from competitors' encroachments, like an impregnable fortress surrounded by a deep moat that no one can breach. This moat includes brand recognition, global distribution, and consumer loyalty, elements that are impossible to replicate. The main source of KO shares' appeal for long-term investors lies in its continuous history of paying and increasing dividends, which spans over 60 years. This makes it a dividend aristocrat crowned with stability. This means the company not only pays dividends, but also increases them annually for many decades, a rarity in the market. These dividends, regularly paid to shareholders, transform Coca-Cola shares into a powerful engine for generating stable capital, especially for those who reinvest them over decades, allowing capital to work for itself like a diligent gardener. Every dividend received, when reinvested, purchases even more shares, which in turn yield new dividends, creating a snowball effect. The power of compound interest, evident through decades of dividend reinvestment, has allowed many investors to turn modest initial investments into very significant fortunes, like growing a mighty tree from a tiny seed, which eventually yields abundant fruit. This is a lesson in patience that brings enormous rewards. You will be astonished. Even if the company's own growth rates slow, the steady stream of dividends continues to provide returns, which is especially valuable for pension funds and individual investors focused on passive income, like an inexhaustible wellspring of vitality gushing from beneath the earth. Coca-Cola's dividends become a reliable source of income, allowing investors to live off the interest from their investments. An analysis of KO share performance shows that the company demonstrates high resilience to inflation. Since its product is an everyday commodity, its price can be relatively easily adjusted without a significant drop in demand, like an elastic material capable of adapting to any conditions. People are willing to pay a little more for their favorite drink, and this protects the company from currency devaluation. The long-term trend of KO stock prices reflects not only the company's financial successes, but also its ability to adapt to changing consumer tastes by diversifying its beverage portfolio and expanding its markets, demonstrating flexibility and foresight. The company constantly seeks new niches and introduces new products to remain relevant. Coca-Cola has become a symbol not only of global capitalism, but also of investment longevity, affirming Buffett's idea that owning stakes in great companies is the most reliable path to financial well-being. For many investors, KO shares are not just securities, but part of a family legacy, passed down through generations, confirming its status as an eternal legacy in the stock market, a jewel that doesn't tarnish with time. The historical context of investing in Coca-Cola shows sometimes the simplest and most understandable businesses with a powerful brand and global reach prove to be the most profitable in the long term, affirming the wisdom of patient ownership, which is valued above quick wins. This is a lesson every aspiring investor should learn. A legacy that shapes the future. We've journeyed from a secret recipe to global dominance. But what remains when the glitter of marketing gives way to cold analysis? In concluding our historical deep dive into the world of Coca-Cola, we see that before us is not merely the story of a beverage, but a grand epic of entrepreneurial genius, marketing mystification, and financial dominance. From its inception in an Atlanta pharmacy to its dominion over global markets, Coca-Cola's path is a vivid testament to the power of intangible assets such as brand and perception, which often prove more powerful than material wealth, like invisible threads governing the world. This is a story of how the skillful creation and management of myths can lead to incredible success. The strategy of cultivating mystery around the formula transformed an ordinary recipe into a sacred holy grail, generating loyalty and unflagging interest. It still fuels global renown like an eternal flame that burns without fuel. This secret became a magnet, attracting billions of consumers. The ingenious model of dividing the business into a syrup producer and a network of independent bottlers allowed the company to scale globally, minimizing capital risks and maximizing the margin of its core product. It embodies an example of commercial artistry that revolutionized traditional notions of production. This was a decision that ensured global expansion without excessive costs. This financial architecture allowed Coca-Cola to become one of the most highly profitable enterprises, proving that sometimes the most valuable asset isn't factories, but intellectual property. Ideas that move the world, not machines. This is a powerful reminder of the strength of human thought and ingenuity. The company's influence on global water and sugar markets reveals the intricate interrelationship between corporate power, natural resource utilization, and the socio-economic consequences for entire regions, demonstrating that even a beverage can reshape landscapes and destinies, leaving behind not only taste sensations, but real, profound changes. This is not merely economic influence, it is an impact on the lives of millions of people and on the planet's ecology. These relationships remind us of the profound responsibility that falls on the shoulders of giants capable of shaping not only consumer habits, but entire industries, becoming a driving force of change that cannot be halted. And this responsibility demands that they constantly reevaluate their actions. Finally, the phenomenon of shares on Wall Street and the unwavering faith of investors like Warren Buffett demonstrate how stability, global reach, and generous dividends can transform a company into an engine for perpetual capital creation, capable of weathering any storm. This proves that long-term thinking and belief in fundamental values can yield incredible fruits. The history of Coca-Cola is not just the chronicle of one beverage. It is a profound lesson in brand power, marketing genius, and an elusive legacy that continues to shape our present and future. It is a living example of how a business can become part of humanity's cultural fabric.